Hi guys, welcome in. I'm so excited to be streaming today. I hope you guys are excited. Hope you brought something to work on. I was just preparing to work on brainstorming for book 2 during this session. I'm gonna wait for some people to filter in before we dive into that, but if you're watching the replay, that's what we're gonna be talking about. But yeah, welcome in, guys. I'm so excited to be streaming today. We have a little boba with us for this stream. Taro boba, which is like my favorite. Okay, looks like we have some people filtering in. Hello, guys. How's everyone doing? Thanks for joining for this Monday night sprint. What's everyone going to be working on during this stream? I'm going to be working on brainstorming for book 2. So I have a bunch of random notes in my notes app and my voice memos that I'm transferring over. Hi guys, welcome. Yay, happy to see you guys here. I saw some of you guys hearted the Instagram story, so I was hoping you guys would come. What are you guys working on for these sprints? Hey everyone, outlining and brainstorming my current whip. That's awesome. We love a little brainstorming session. I'm also going to be brainstorming. Very exciting. Hi, Sophia. Welcome. Just grab some pizza so I can get to work. Love it. Love that you have fuel. I have boba, which is all the fuel that I ever need, honestly. Yay, I love brainstorming. Me too. This is very exciting. So I haven't been able to work on book 1, right? Because currently I'm waiting for my printout of the rough draft to do my reread. So I haven't been doing any work on book 1. But as I mentioned in my last vlog, I'm starting to get more and more ideas for book 2. So I have a ton of stuff in my notes app and in voice memos. So today, what I'm going to work on for the first sprint at least is transferring a lot of those notes into a big notes dump document in my Scrivener file so that I have all of them in one place, which is very exciting. So excited to dive a little bit into book 2. Hello, I'll be working on my fantasy romance novella again. Love that. How is the project going? Have you made any progress since the last stream? Working on draft 2 of an adult thriller. Hopefully we'll get through a few chapters. Love that. Thrillers are so cool. I actually read my first sort of thriller maybe a year ago now. It was like a romantic thriller. I wasn't sure how I would feel about the genre, but I really, really enjoyed it. So I might have to get more into thrillers. I'm here to do my English homework. Love that. You know, anything you want to bring to the streams does not have to be writing related. I'm probably going to do some YouTube work at some point during one of these streams. Writing draft 1 of my new story. That's so exciting. Nothing quite like a rough draft of a new story. Still half plotting / half writing my current whip. Nice. Jessie, right? I hope that I'm getting that right. I realized I got it wrong in the last stream. So are you doing are you writing a chapter and then adding to your brainstorm? Like, is that the sort of process that you have going on where you're kind of working on both simultaneously? Hi, friends. I'm going to be reading tonight. I'm behind on my book for book club. Reading, that's so fun. What's your book for book club? What is everyone reading right now? Oh, I feel like this will be good. Everyone drop what they're reading right now. I'm on Ruthless Ends, which is the last book in the Marionette series. Fantasy romance work for me. We love fantasy romance in this house. That's awesome. Are you outlining? Are you drafting? Are you editing? What's the vibes? I'm working on draft 2 of my dystopian fantasy, right up my alley. Are you putting this book out? Because I would love to read it. That's so exciting that you're working on draft 2. So are you focusing on a ton of developmental edits? Let me know what type of edits are you working on right now? Working on my thriller / dystopian. Love it. Lots of dystopian in this chat, which I love to see because I feel like I never hear about dystopian nowadays, and I want to bring it back. Okay, good. Hi, Jessie. Welcome. Happy to see you here. Okay, cool. Love that. I worked out some scene cards, but having to adjust. Reading the Marionettes, or is there another book called The Marionette? Let me know. That's cool. So what's the word? Note cards? I love working with note cards. I think I want to do more tangible exercises like that because when I did my like Post-it notes thing on my mirror. That was like the most fun thing in the world. I could see myself wanting to do something like that in the future when I plot book 1, book 2. Reading An Ember in the Ashes, The Poppy War. Okay, Ivy's drafting almost at 25K. That's so exciting. You're really getting into it. I love that. Working on a 0 draft of a fantasy that's maybe a romantic fantasy. I absolutely love that. Yeah, where the line is between fantasy and romantic fantasy, still something that I'm trying to figure out for myself. Curious what you guys think is like sort of the deciding factor on whether a book can call itself a romantasy or like a romantic blank, a blank romance. How much romance needs to be present? Does it need to be like the center of the plot for you? Curious. Reading Malice by Heather Walter. Okay, I've never heard of that one. That's so interesting. The Marionettes. Okay, love that. How are you liking it so far? I have enjoyed this series so much. Like, I'm actually obsessed. Oh, I was going to see if I had a copy of it, but I don't, tragically. I'm reading We Were Liars, just starting it. I feel like I've heard of that one. I need to learn more about, like, these books. I haven't recognized, like, any of the titles you guys have thrown out. Maybe I have to check some of these out. It's mostly developmental and reworking the plot to add more substance. My first draft is just getting the basic ideas out for me. Draft 2 is about cleaning it up and using Save the Cat. That's awesome. I think I'm also going to try to use Save the Cat for my draft 2. But I like that approach. That's really fun. Do you have like a lot more scenes that you want to add, like chapters that are missing and stuff? Or is it mostly just like reworking and moving things around? Currently reading Namesake by Adrienne Young. I'm really excited. I just started following her and I love it so far. I'm obsessed with Katie. I talk about Katie all the time. I love seeing her journey with like indie publishing and writing and all of that. I feel like it's a romantic fantasy if the romance is a plot thread, and it's a fantasy romance if the romance is the main plot. I totally agree, which is why I feel somewhat comfortable using the term romantasy, because technically romantasy would be romantic fantasy, right? So it doesn't need to be the main plot, but it is a thread. I think I agree. That's good to hear. Plotting my romantasy. I read that in romantasy there needs to be as much romance as there is fantasy elements. Oh, that's an interesting. It's so hard. I'm trying to think of like ACOTAR, because I feel like that's considered obviously a romantasy. And I do feel like ACOTAR, most of the emphasis is on the plot. I hesitate to say that, but they're so intertwined. For me, I consider it a romantasy if the main plot is more focused on the romance than other elements, politics, world building stuff, etc. Maybe I need to start calling it a romantic fantasy then, and not a romantasy. It's a constant struggle to try and figure this stuff out. Also, this is so random, but I need to show you guys because I'm obsessed. This came in the mail today. Annotating tabs for marking up my rough draft. And I've never annotated a book before. So this is like very much new territory. And I'm excited. They only had packs that came with like 3,000, which feels a little bit aggressive. Sorry about the noises of me opening this right now. But I'm like insanely excited. Like there's all these different packs with different color schemes and stuff. I think I'm going to use maybe like something with a lot of blues and greens for this book to match the vibes, or this one. Perfect. Yeah, I'm really excited. Have you guys ever done something like this where you're like marking up a draft with annotations or little notes in the margins? Because I'm really excited. This one's also beautiful. Pretty much I'm just going to pick one that matches the color scheme of the book, which is like a lot of greens, light pink, stuff like that. Oh my god, this is so cute. People recognizing each other in the chat. A bit of both. I've got a few main plot threads that I'm moving around, i.e. showing up earlier than in draft 1, and I completely changed my female main character's motivations, so there's an actual character arc, lol. I love that. I think I was watching a video recently and heard the tip about coming up with what's your character's like misbelief about themselves or the world or whatever. And I thought that was so interesting. So I did some explorations with that with my main character, and I feel like it taught me a lot about her. Not necessarily stuff I didn't know, but things that it just kind of solidified, I guess. Wow, this is really cute. I love seeing the interaction. The Accidental Kingslayer. Okay, I've never heard of that. That's fun. Yes, I would always print out my short stories and mark all over them. I love that. I'm excited. I feel like it's gonna scratch an itch in my brain. I love annotating everything LOL, but annotating your own book is a new feeling. Yeah. I think it's gonna be very surreal. Oh, I love that. Yay. Anytime I can motivate you guys to work on your projects, that's amazing. Okay, well, shall we get into our first sprint? We've been chatting for quite some time. Yeah, I'm just gonna be working on my little brainstorming document, but we'll do a 25-minute sprint and then we'll do some more chatting about what we accomplished and all of that. So yeah, let's jump into it. Thanks for being here, guys. I'm excited. Okay, guys, how did that sprint go for everyone? If you're writing, what word count did you get? If you're not writing, if you're outlining, how did it go? For me, I think this is, dare I say, the seeds of an outline. Who knew that me, would have an outline? But what it is really right now is just a collection of some of the scenes that I already have in mind, and then any notes that I have for those scenes. So I'm like breaking it down, which is a lot more organized than I was for book one. So that's already feeling really good. And during that last sprint, I did have some additional ideas come up while I was like compiling my notes for some different ways that the sort of magic system and world building can vary in this new location of book two. Lots of sparks flying, ideas materializing. But I'm feeling really good about it so far. There's a lot of scenes that I'm really excited to write. I'm like super eager for when I finally get to work on this book. I also, well, I'll talk about it a little bit more after I go through your guys' comments. I passed 25,000. That's amazing. Congrats. So happy for you. Really wanted to outline / brainstorm some new chapters, but I went over and fixed some plot holes. Fixing plot holes is still a wonderful use of time, so I love that for you. Yay for almost outlines. Got to celebrate these things as a pantser, you know? 458 new words for me. That's amazing for a 25-minute sprint. Love that for you. I'm on chapter 2 and answering the questions already. That's awesome. Revising a TV pilot. That's so cool. I love that I have some little screenwriters in my audience. That's really exciting. What round of revision are you on? I'm working on my third book in my low fantasy book series that only contains 8 chapters, but there's short chapters in them sleeves. I published them on Amazon. Oh, that's cool. I've never heard the term low fantasy. I'm assuming that's the opposite of high fantasy, but I've just never heard that before. That's interesting. I wrote about 500 words. That's great for a 25-minute sprint. Congrats. I'm working on chapter 2, and the new edits are making it flow so much better than draft 1. Yay! That's so exciting. I can only imagine how rewarding it must be to like really see the book improving drastically in real time. I'm excited to experience that. 700 words. That's very good. Are you a fast drafter, would you say? Started searching up Scrivener prices halfway through the sprint. Listen, I love Scrivener. If you do end up getting Scrivener and you want to use my affiliate link, it's linked in the description of all my videos. Little, little self-promo. I finished outlining my first chapter of my novel. That's awesome. Congrats. First chapter. I love that. I'm working on the outline for my second draft. I keep getting lost in my world building in a good way. Okay. Wait, that's so fun. I love that for you. She's going into the world building rabbit hole. Also, hi, Diamond. How are you? Diamond and I will be co-hosting a live stream at some point in May. So I'm excited for that. One scene away from finishing my first draft. That's wait. That's awesome. Do you think you're gonna finish it during this stream, like in our second sprint? I would love to be present for somebody finishing a book. That would be crazy. For my next play, it's a waiting game for what board members at the guild actually want for the season after next, then picking a story to put on paper accordingly. Well, that's exciting. Another one of our, I was going to say screenwriters, but that's not quite right. You know what I mean. I joined late, but I got around 80 words before the timer went off. Hey, 80 words is still 80 words. You can, get some more during our next sprint. I'm on draft 3 of revising the TV pilot, planning to start writing a romance novel in the fall. So I love seeing the progress on your novel. Thank you. That's so exciting. I feel like the fall is the perfect time to write a romance. Fall in general is just like prime romance or just writing season. I don't know if you guys know. I don't know if I mentioned that, but I'm moving to Seattle in September. And I feel like Seattle fall and me writing book 2 is going to be like chef's kiss, like incredible. Yes, Scrivener, fire. I honestly think it's the perfect writing software. Like, I don't have any desire to try out anything else. It's just like amazing, not only for the actual drafting, but also like brainstorming and stuff. Oh, I see. This is interesting. The type of low fantasy I write is the type where the fantastical things can be used or explained, but not complicated. It's more for beginners of fantasy that want diverse characters. Okay, I love that. Okay, that's cool. I've never heard of that term before, so very excited. Oh my God, I'm in Seattle and you will love the writing vibes. So many good coffee shops I use all the time. I'm gonna need coffee shop recs because I'm a coffee shop girly, and the fact that I will no longer have my go-tos is distressing. So give me the coffee shop recs. Anyone else who lives in Seattle, let me know spots that I should check out. I'm really excited. I've never been there, but I am moving there. So um I had some more thoughts that I wanted to say about my brainstorming for book 2, but they completely escaped my brain, which is really unfortunate. Oh, I'm trying to figure out with certain things whether I want them to be set up for in book 1 or whether I want them to just come in book 2. This is also why I'm glad that I'm thinking about book 2 while I'm still working on book 1, is so that I can plant some of those seeds, because there's certain like concepts or like key factors to book 2 that I'm like, it will be weird if we haven't even laid any groundwork for this at the end of book 1. So it's kind of interesting right now to try and figure out which threads need to be introduced at the end of book 1, or even just subtly hinted at in book 1. So then when I pull them into book 2, they don't feel like they're coming out of thin air, you know? So that's been a really interesting part of just starting to brainstorm for book 2. Um, and I'm excited for it to hopefully be my NaNoWriMo project next year. So yeah, that's been really fun. Um, any other thoughts before we jump into a second sprint? I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we can chat about that I've been thinking about. Vancouver is relatively close to Seattle, so if you make trips up there, ask Kayla Kempers and Shaylin Bishop what they think are good coffee shops in that city. I think I've been to Vancouver once. That's so interesting that it's like so close to Seattle. That'll be fun. Congrats on Seattle. I've been thinking about moving there from Cali too. Thank you. I really love LA, so it's gonna feel sad in a lot of ways, but I do think that the vibes there are like prime for writing and like coziness, which I love. Now that fall is like my favorite season and everything, I feel like it'll be fun. Anyone who is currently drafting or brainstorming, what's like a recent breakthrough that you've had, or something you maybe figured out either today or in like a recent writing sprint? Is it like character development? Is it like a new plot thread you want to introduce? I'm very curious to hear. Um, yeah. I like have like little bits of dialogue and little interactions and stuff already in mind for book 2, which this is very much how the ideas for book 1 started. It was like some stray scenes and little bits of dialogue or like little interactions I wanted to incorporate. I feel like I'm starting to learn this is just my process. By the way, I will have a full ass video coming out about everything I learned from drafting my first book. That will like dive a little bit more into some of those takeaways, but yeah. Also, for those of you who do follow me over on the writing Instagram, thank you guys so much for submitting your like video request ideas. I'm really excited to make a ton of the videos that you guys recommended. I feel like they're going to be really, really fun. Yeah. I figured out how I am going to start the novel. This is the first book of a series. I was going to start it completely different, so this changed everything, but it is for the better. That's really exciting. I feel like beginnings are one of the things that are the hardest to nail, especially on a rough draft, just because you really don't know where you need to start and what you need to set up for, especially if you are a little bit more of like a pantser, or in this case, you have a whole series to think about, which is like a whole other thing. So yeah, that's exciting that you were able to solidify what you want the beginning to be. Throughout my surplus of play ideas, I've really been emphasizing themes more. They need to resonate with an audience in ways that will stick. This is so interesting. I hear a lot of writers talk about how they lead with themes. That has never been where my ideas stem from, is having a theme I know I want to speak on. I also feel like a lot of my projects don't feel personal, which I know is, I don't know if that's an uncommon feeling, but it never feels like I'm trying to process anything through my projects, or honestly that they're like personal to me. It feels almost very separate from myself, which is interesting. I think also my relationship with ideas is very much, it feels like the ideas kind of plop into my brain instead of me starting from a theme or something I want to say and then building the idea around it. It's interesting. Though I do think that my stories end up having themes. They're just something I discover later in the process. Venture Coffee Co. is super aesthetic, and Cafe on the Ave, super late night with real food too, are my two favorites so far. I'm still exploring new ones. That's exciting. How long have you been in Seattle? Thank you so much for the Rex. Um, I'm excited to check out the Seattle coffee shops. It looks like they have some really cute ones. I discovered recently that my second book is not going to be the last on the series. There's going to be a book 3, and it's going to be awesome. That's so exciting, a trilogy. I'm like low-key scared that's going to happen to me, but I'm like determined to only make it a duology because even writing 2 books in my first project feels a little bit insane. um, but I'm like, how am I supposed to wrap this up in 2 books? I know book 2 is going to have to it's going to have to move along. Things are going to have to happen. Also, something that I'm thinking about lately is a book that I read recently. I felt like there was a war going on, right? It was a fantasy war, but the characters were very removed from the action. So they would just like be talking about what's going on in the war, but they're not really participating. And that really reminded me that it's important to me that these characters are really active in the conflict and they're not just like watching the war go down from a distance. So that's kind of random, but that's something that I've been thinking about and realizing is how important it is to me that my characters are doing things and they're not being bystanders, giving the characters agency and making them actually involved in central conflict, even though they are like young and they're in their young 20s. They need to be participating in this war. After reading through my draft 1, the big picture ideas for the magic system are really starting to shine through. That's so exciting. Magic systems, they're interesting. Um, Mine is just starting to solidify. It's interesting because in book 1, it is a very soft magic system, like very soft. It's very much based on like intuition and emotion. But I think what will be interesting is since they're in a different like continent in book 2, how does this place treat magic differently? And I think I'm going to have magic be a little more concrete, something they can actually study. People have actual specialties, like different talents that they develop within magic. So ideas are flowing, but it always feels good when you have like a new, fresh idea for the magic system or things are falling together. Fair enough. Sometimes stories can afford to be a fun romp with minimal goals. Uh, yeah, that's fair. But the thing is too is like I feel like my focus a lot of times with wanting to tell stories is more about the feeling it will give the reader. Um, like I want the type of story that I would get excited by, you know what I mean? Like I've been trying to take the approach of writing for a reader like me as well. My drafting process has become making bullet points for what happens in each chapter. It's kind of brain dumping, but also makes the ideas concise and easier to see if the story is flowing. I love that. Yeah, I think I might end up doing that sort of for book 2, chapter by chapter. At least for now, it's helping me to even just organize my notes by scene, like what general scene I want it to go in. Then hopefully I'll move the scenes around and some blanks might need to be filled in later. Some puzzle pieces might need to be added, but then at least I'll have a skeleton with like different checkpoints, scenes that I know I want to happen. So that's been kind of my perspective on how I'm going to approach outlining going forward, I think. I do think after project 1, I've learned a little bit more about my process and book 1, I should say. Learned a little bit more about my process and what I need to do first and also some slight more outlining that I could do to help me while still leaving room for the pantsing. That's like my plan. Because I do think discovery writing works with my brain. So I don't want to completely like forgo that and get too intense with outlining. Um, yeah. Okay. Shall we do one more sprint? I feel like we could do one more. Um, okay, let's jump into it. Good luck, everyone, and we will chat for our final little chat afterwards. Okay. Yay. Okay, guys, how did that sprint go for everybody? Let me see what I kind of did in that sprint. I actually had a ton of new ideas during that sprint, which was exciting. Um, Specifically for the ending, some things I want to go down in the ending, some relationships I want to make a little more complex, how things can kind of settle out at the end of the book logistically. We're making some interesting realizations. And I think what will be really great about starting to outline book 2 now is that these ideas can really marinate so that by the time I draft, I'll kind of be able to look at some of these ideas with fresh eyes and figure out what I really want to include, make any changes. But I kind of like this whole marination thing. I think going forward, I could totally see it being part of my process that I start brainstorming really far in advance. And then by the time I draft, the ideas have been marinating for months, maybe years. Because I feel like then you have so much material going into the draft because you have months of just random ideas popping up, you know? Anyway, those are my thoughts. It was a very productive session for me, feeling really excited. 493 words, that is incredible. Congrats. Relationships, you say? Yes, actually, what I was thinking about right now was the love interest's relationships with his brothers and how it could be more interesting if there's one specific brother where the relationship is different and how that can be revealed as well. 602, taking me over my goal of 1K for the day. Congrats. 1K for a day is a great freaking session. So congrats. I'm on my way home still. I was at musical rehearsal. When I get home, I'll work on my whip. Nice. Are you acting in the musical? What musical is it? I switched over to data collection for an essay on Hollywood history. Previous hours of combing the internet have given me plenty of the necessities, but I still need world premiere locations. For example, which theater in San Francisco for a show The Shop Around the Corner, which theater in London for a show Bambi. Nice, doing some research. Love to hear that. I got 2 scenes planned out. I outlined by writing every idea I have for the scene in a scene card so I don't forget later. That's also my process for like outlining is just dumping every idea for the scene into the document for that specific chapter because otherwise I will forget and I like having something to reference as I'm writing a chapter. And the more material I already have, the easier it is, of course, to write the chapter. I'm curious, when you guys get ideas, are you frequently getting like sort of vague concepts that then you have to like flesh out? Or do you also have like specific dialogue, very specific interactions and lines just come to you when you're not drafting, like come to you out of the blue while you're doing other things? Because that's how inspiration kind of works for me sometimes. I worked a little bit on outlining the rest of the scenes. That's awesome. We love outlining progress. Yes, I'm acting. We're still doing auditions, but it's a Spanish musical called Merlin, a Musical Legend. That's so awesome. That's exciting. So, are you auditioning for one of the like lead parts? It's usually vague for me. Interesting. Both of those things. I jot them all down in my writing board on Notion. Nice. Yeah, oh, that's fun that you have a writing board on Notion. That's where I first started working on some of my book ideas as well. But yeah, I get both sometimes too. Sometimes it is more so just like, oh, it'd be awesome if there was a scene where this happened. And then other times it's literally like, I want this character to say this and be doing this exact motion, which is just interesting to see how the ideas plop into your head. Both. I get dialogue so often, but also vibes and vague ideas. Yeah, I love that. And honestly, when I get dialogue, it is such a blessing because writing dialogue is hard. And when I'm just sitting down and drafting, it's very hard for dialogue to come naturally. So when there is those times where I can just like picture dialogue and picture a moment, I'm like so excited to have that already going into the draft because that is a lot harder for me to get naturally while I'm actually working on the book. So I like lose my mind every time dialogue just comes to me and I'm actually able to visualize because I don't know about you guys, but visualization of my characters is actually pretty hard for me sometimes, which I think is what makes descriptions a little tricky as well. But when I get the visuals immediately, the descriptions come easier. Just finished answering chapter 3 questions. That's awesome. Love to hear it. I see specific scenes very clearly in my head. From there, I info dump more details about the scene so I don't forget. Okay, this is exactly what I was saying I wish happened to me. That's awesome that you're able to see specific scenes so clearly. And yeah, I one thing that I've been so good about since starting writing again that I'm grateful for is any ideas, I really try to write them down, even if I'm not sure if I want to go with them, even if I think I'll remember them, because so many things could slip through the cracks if you're not diligent about writing down your ideas. I'm auditioning for Morgana. Oh, very exciting. Well, I hope you get the part and the audition goes well. I have a bit of both. If it's vague and I start writing it, I get inspiration and keep it going. I have to have everything organized so it goes where I need it to be in my series Bible. That's cool that you have a series Bible. What platform are you using to make your series Bible? I think series Bibles are so cool. um, yeah, I think I'm definitely discovering how much I also like organizing, and it's going to be a huge part of what I do to prep for draft 2. The scenes I just wrote out had lots of dialogue. That's awesome. I think in general, my book is lacking a little bit in dialogue. Even though I don't thrive with descriptions, I think I lean towards not including enough dialogue. I think I need to add more when I go and revise. I think it's because I'm so worried about the dialogue being bad that I'm like precious about how much I'm adding in. But I'm like, we can make this a little more casual. Not every piece of dialogue needs to be like very nice and poetic or like perfect, you know what I mean? Like they can be just like chatting in a casual form. But the scenes are silent. Dialogue is hard for me. LOL. Yeah, dialogue. Diamond, I feel like you keep saying things and then I get to them and I'm like, oh, I literally just said that. That's crazy. I feel like we're on the same wavelength. Yeah, dialogue is really hard for me. It's like trying to find the right mix between wanting the characters to sound distinct, so they sound like their own people, not wanting them to all sound like you, not making it overly formal. This is something I've struggled with a lot and I talk about in a future video. I, for some reason, make my characters speak very formally for no reason and use like long words that no one actually uses. So I need to like cut that out. And I also think from film school, when I was writing short films where literally there was like 15 lines of dialogue in the whole thing, I feel like every single line of dialogue needs to be the most purposeful thing in the world. I'm scared to have anyone say what they mean in fears that it'll be telling instead of showing. It's a complete mind boggle. How do you guys all feel about dialogue? What are your dialogue related struggles? What do you find yourself doing? Do you have any crush words or phrases that you find yourself leaning on? I want to hear all of your thoughts about dialogue. Hannah says, dialogue is hard for me. Yes, relate. I tend to daydream, so I get lots of visuals or find it on Pinterest. I use campfire writing. It is great for world building. I'm building a language for my magic and have that in Google Docs. A language, like a literal whole other language. That sounds so complex. That's awesome, though. Does anyone else have experience with campfire writing? I've been thinking about maybe reaching out to them to possibly work with them on a video because their platform seems really cool. I'm also interested in maybe trying out Milanote, because I've seen Anna New work with them, and I feel like their platform looks cool too. But yeah, I will say the daydreaming is absolutely when I get the visuals for my book too, which is also why I'm like, I really want to do this whole marination concept of like sitting with the idea before I draft, because the only time I really get those visuals is from daydreaming, not like actually drafting. Um, okay, sorry guys, I'm falling a little bit behind on the chat. We're trying here. Dialogue is the worst. Yeah. The dialogue is easier for me, but I struggle a lot to think about the environment around the characters. That's so difficult. I struggle with this too. I struggle a lot with describing rooms, don't even get me started on describing like natural geography or like choreographing character movements. Oh my God, it hurts my brain. Like that is so hard to me too. In each chapter of Grapes of Wrath, John Steinbeck would alternate between heavy dialogue scenes with the actual characters and pure vibe scenes that commented on the depression through nature. Oh, that's so interesting. I love writing dialogue, but it scares me for some reason. Me too. I do say I love writing dialogue because when dialogue hits, it hits. And I love specifically writing dialogue from my love interest because it just like makes my heart happy. But it does also scare me because I feel like most of the time when people are reading a book and they have one of those moments that's like It's usually some crazy dialogue, like, it's usually dialogue induced, or it's, like, a metaphor that's like, "What?" That's at least what I notice the most in books that bothers me. Dialogue became easier for me when I stopped trying to force it into scenes. Sometimes a scene needs it, but I can't write it naturally. That's interesting. Yeah, I think I have the opposite issue is that I'm not forcing it into scenes, therefore there's simply not enough dialogue. And I know as a reader, and I'm sure a lot of readers feel this way. Dialogue is my favorite part. That's where the juice is, that's where the romance is. Um, so I feel like I want to add more, but it's tricky. It's nice to be on the stream and at least get something done. I gotta go now. Bye. Bye. Thanks for joining us. So I do pure prose until I can go back to that when I have a clearer idea of the combo. Oh, that's interesting. So you're basically writing everything around the dialogue and then adding it in later. I use Campfire too. I love it. Okay, interesting to hear that people love Campfire. I'm awful at dialogue tags and description. Campfire is great. I use it for a lot of my stories. Okay, I had no idea that Campfire was this popular. I'm very intrigued. I will have to check it out. Um, yeah, dialogue tags is tricky. I also struggle a lot with repetitive body language. I know that's like an almost universal struggle. It's like, how many ways can you describe a smile? I used Milanote when I was a SMM, great for visualizing. Okay, interesting. I feel like I would like Milanote because I'm a very visual person and I loved creating a Pinterest board. And I feel like it's sort of like a Pinterest board on steroids, you know? I usually see the dialogue in my mind as scenes from a movie, but the setting is very difficult for me to visualize it. Yeah, every time I do have it show up like a scene from a movie, I'm like, that's like Christmas Day. But it is rare for me to see my book that way. I keep looking up to the side because I keep glancing at my character pictures. Because honestly, if I didn't have those, I think it would be 20 times harder for me to visualize anything in this book. Campfire is my favorite story Bible resource. I'll talk about it and recommend it forever. Okay, this is very good to know. I mention it because striking a balance between the two always brings out my self-conscious side. No, I feel the same way. And I think also this is another thing that was wired into my head from film school is because film is obviously a very visual medium, right? So there was heavy focus on making sure that we were including enough visuals and not relying on the dialogue for everything. But a book is quite literally not a visual medium. Like, of course, the reader is imagining things, but it's not as big of a role as it plays with a short film. So I'm trying to rewire my brain to be like, it's okay if the dialogue is there. It is difficult since I have no experience in building a language. It's called conlang, artlang, constructed language, art language. It is fun though once I figured it out. I'm still creating it. That is honestly so cool. These like more in-depth world building elements I find so impressive when people are able to do. I really love Campfire Writing as a series Bible platform since I love world building. Okay, the love for Campfire is strong in this chat. I'm going to have to check them out or reach out to them or something because I really want to try them out. Okay, that's exciting. Thank you guys so much for coming to the stream. It was so fun getting to chat with you guys as always. I'm really loving doing these streams more frequently again. So do not be surprised if you see one pop up in a couple weeks again. But thank you guys so much for coming. Hope you guys had a really productive time and enjoyed yourselves. Loved getting to chat about dialogue, about outlining, brainstorming. Yeah, and I'll see you guys in my next video, maybe next week. Thanks for coming. I'm glad you guys enjoyed them. I love hosting you guys. And yeah, see you next time.